Welcome to the Dash Mindset Podcast. I'm Sherry Zievenbergen. You were born, you're gonna die, and your adventure is your dash in between. So make the most of it. Unlock your potential in all aspects of your dash by embracing your uniqueness and living in a way that's authentic to you, not by doing more things, but by focusing on the right things. I'm a former corporate leader turned coach who's on my own journey, and I'm passionate about helping you on your journey too. So on the podcast, we'll explore how to live authentically by deciphering who you truly are and what you truly want. Are you ready to take a step toward designing your dash? Someday doesn't actually exist, so let's do it now. Hello and welcome to the Dash Mindset Podcast. It is Sherry Z here as usual. And today I would love for you to think about something that you've been wanting to do, but you've been putting off, or that you've simply decided against altogether. It's something that maybe has been nagging you here and there, and you think, oh, that thing sounds like it would be great, but you just don't know how, and you can't get your head around the how. So your brain might be rationalizing, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too busy, I'm too whatever, because that's what our brains do. But ultimately, it's just a matter of getting your head around the how, which you haven't done, right? It's something we all do all the time. When we don't know the how, it can stop us in our tracks. And I know this is something that has stopped me in my tracks several times, and I suspect it has stopped you too. Because as humans, we like certainty, although we really never actually have it. We like to think we do. And when we don't have the full picture, when we don't have all the details, we don't know all the steps, we just can't get our head around it. And the thought of figuring it all out can be overwhelming. So today, I'm sharing an experience that made me think about this. And the experience is our hike to the tiger's nest on our recent trip to Bhutan. So in episode 36, I shared an overview of our trip to Bhutan overall. And I won't get into all the details again here. That's not the point of this, but just to give you some context, we went on a surprise trip to Bhutan. We did not know where we were going. We knew we were going on a trip, okay? So it was a surprise trip. We knew we were going on a trip. We knew when we were going. We were leaving it in the hands of the amazing Derek/Wandering Earl, our tour guide, to let us know. So we knew we were going somewhere. We first went to Bangladesh, then we ended up in Bhutan. Okay, so this amazing place. Generally, when we travel, I will buy a guide of some sort for the country. This time I didn't, because I didn't know where the heck we were going until a couple days before, and only knew about the Bangladesh part. Had no idea about the Bhutan part until the day before we left for Bhutan when Derek/Wandering Earl made the announcement. So there's a little bit of context. You can listen to episode 36 if you want more. But basically, we're in Bhutan. Okay. And Derek, as he did throughout the entire trip, told us what our plans were each day, the day of an adventure, or sometimes the night before an adventure, because it was a surprise trip. So everything about it was really just a series of surprises, which was amazing. So we found out we were going on this trek to the tiger's nest, just like all the other adventures, the night before. We're at dinner the night before, and he says, tomorrow we're going to be going to the tiger's nest. Didn't give us all the details. What he did share, though, was what the heck the tiger's nest even was. I had done no research on Bhutan because I had no idea we were going to Bhutan prior to the trip. So I didn't even know what the heck the tiger's nest was. The people who were in the group who did know were, clearly excited. And I thought, okay, yeah, he's not going to take us anywhere that's not some amazing, off-field adventure. So I was excited too. So he says we're going to the tiger's nest. And what he shares is that it consists of 8 400-year-old Buddhist cave temples that are built into the top of a mountain. Okay, so clearly, I have seen pictures of these monasteries built into mountains, and I've always thought, oh, what an amazing adventure that would be to go. Okay, I did not know anything other than what he was sharing about it, that it was built into the side of a mountain. I knew it was going to be super cool, right? And so this is what he shares. They're 10,000 feet above the valley. And he shares the only way to get there is by walking the entire way from the parking lot up to the temples, or you could take a mule halfway and then walk the second half. Either way, we would be walking a lot. And so he strongly suggested that we wear comfortable clothes and shoes, clearly. And he said it would take 3 to 8 hours. So pretty big range there. So, the group was allowing ourselves about 9, just to make sure we weren't putting any pressure on ourselves. So we leave dinner. I'm so excited. I look online to see what the heck this place even was and to get some sense of what it was in my mind. And I knew, okay, yeah, the hike's going to be challenging. It might even suck part of the time, right? I had failed to pack the right pants for hiking. I had packed jeans. I had packed shorts. It was going to be a little too chilly for shorts. You don't want to hike a mountain in jeans, but, here we are. So I thought, okay, it's going to be fine. And there was part of me that thought, oh, man, do I really want to walk up a mountain? Right? And I know there are some people out there who would never even consider not walking up a mountain because that's just something you love, right? Well, it did occur to me, for a few things occurred to me immediately. One was, okay, what are the worst things that could happen, right? And this whole adventure, what are the worst things that could happen? It didn't really occur to me not to do it, but I thought, okay, what's the worst thing? So the first one, I thought, okay, I could take a mule halfway. The mule could, go berserk or something. I don't know. I don't know much about mules. It could throw me off the mountain, or somehow I could just slide off the mountain with the mule. I don't know. I don't know how good these things are. I'm assuming mules are pretty well equipped to walk up mountains. It's not like, it's their first rodeo or mountain climb or whatever you want to call it. It was possible, though. It was possible. I could get thrown off the side. I could just fall off the mountain, right? It was possible. But then logical Sherry thought, okay, yeah, it's also possible for me to get into a car accident on the way to the mountain, right? But that wasn't going to keep me at the hotel. At the hotel, I could get, electrocuted, or I could get carbon monoxide poisoning. I don't know. So bad things happen everywhere. Okay, so it's pretty sure I'm not gonna be thrown off the mountain. I'm not gonna fall off the mountain. And I thought, you know what? Our Buddhist guides, they're amazing people. They are going to tell us if there's a common occurrence of tourists falling off the mountain to their deaths, right? I just trusted that they would let me know if this was a frequent occurrence. So, okay, got over that one. On to the next one. I thought, okay, I was clearly, this was something that would happen if I made the climb. I was going to be out of breath, and I was going to, be in a little bit of pain, at least a little bit of pain, right? It was 10,000 feet. It wasn't going to just be, I wasn't going to be jogging up the mountain or certainly sprinting. I knew that. Okay, yeah, great. I'm going to be out of breath and I might be in a little bit of pain. Okay, I would recover from that. Okay, what else? What's the other bad thing? What are some other bad things that could happen? I could be so out of breath and tired, I would turn around and come back. Okay, yeah, that was an option. Would that really be the worst thing ever, though? No, what occurred to me would be the worst thing would be that I didn't try at all because I was fearful of what might happen. Because I was fearful that, okay, I'm going to be out of breath. Well, yeah, just being in the Himalayas at all makes me out of breath compared to being in Iowa. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to not try and regret it. That in my mind would be the worst thing ever, is if I didn't even try and I regretted it. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I was in. And all of these thoughts went through my head in about, 2 seconds, right? And so I knew I was in. So my husband, on the other hand, Matt, he wasn't quite sure. He wasn't all in. Yeah, he thought it looked amazing. He just wasn't sure if he needed to hike up to it, or if simply just seeing it from the parking lot was enough. He'd had back surgery last year. He just wasn't sure if the positives outweigh the negatives. So he was kind of, going back and forth on it. And he asked me if I really wanted him to go. Now, I just want to point out that if you are in a situation similar to this, not necessarily, discussing whether or not you're going to hike up the tiger's nest, but if you're in such a situation, someone says, hey, do you really want me to go? Or if you're in the opposite situation, you're asking someone, hey, do you really want me to go? I urge you to consider the fact that ultimately it should be up to you or to the other person, right? And we'll get into, the why behind all that. But anyway, these alarms went off and I thought, yeah, I'm not going to answer that one for you. So my response was, of course, I would love for you to go. If you really want to go, I'm telling my husband, if you really want to go, I would love for you to go. I would love for, to have this experience with you. But it is up to you to ultimately make this decision. And I did say, hey, the worst thing that could happen is, okay, what we went through, you could get thrown off the mountain. You could fall off the mountain. You could be in pain, right? And you could be in so much pain, you could turn around and come back. Or you could regret never having tried. So he really wasn't sure. And he went through all of those possibilities in his head too. He just was at the point where he thought, well, would I really have a huge regret if I didn't try? Because he was at a very different place than I was. He has curiosity and adventure as two of his values as well. But his curiosity and adventure are different than mine. He wants to read everything at museums. I don't. I just kind of want to go to the museum, check it out. However, when it comes to climbing up a mountain to see temples, I'm all in. That's my curiosity and adventure. So he was trying to figure out, okay, is it worth it for me? He just wasn't sure. And I said, okay, fine. I'm going to go. I would love for you to go if that's the decision you make and you decide you want to go. We'll just figure it out. So he decided he was going to decide the next day. Okay, great. So the next morning, our van takes us to the Tiger's Nest, which it's one of the most sacred sites in Bhutan, okay? And it's just stunning. And so we're standing in the parking lot looking up toward this tiny group of temples at the top of the mountain, okay? We could barely see them. I understood, okay, this is where we're headed, right? And it's still stunning, even though they were just this tiny group of temples. It was still just so beautiful. And the clouds were passing. It was just amazing. So we see this tiny group of temples at the top of the mountain. And I am thinking, how in the hell are we going to get up there? I mean, it's not clear by any stretch of the imagination. But I was assured, hey, you will get up there. People have done this, for 400 years. And they built the things to begin with that, which I can't even get my head around that. But I was assured we would get up there. There was a trail, there were stairs. We just couldn't see them. Okay, have faith. I was definitely still in. I was just confused. I just couldn't see what the path was, definitely from where we stood. And so at that point, Matt decided he was going to go to worst case scenario. He would walk partway, come back down. That would be the worst case scenario. So here we are in the parking lot. We're getting our walking sticks. Some of us decided to take mules halfway. Some people walked the entire way. Everyone was kind of figuring out their own thing. And so Matt and I decided to take a mule ride to the halfway point, which was one option, either walk the entire way or take a mule, right? So we decided, we've never been on mules on a mountain. So, this seems like an appropriate time to do that. So we decided to take a mule. Now, I did have some questions about this because the last time I was on a horse was in 1998 or something. And it's not that I even did really well on a horse then, which was a long, long time ago. But I was told that we each had a guide. The guide was going to take us up the mountain, was going to guide our horse. So I didn't have to remember a lot, right? I was not in control of this horse. It was somebody else. Okay. So the guide helps me get on the mule, which was a feat in itself. The guide tells me when to lean forward, when to lean back, all of which I was certain I was going to forget, until the time for me to choose one came. But I had the guide, so it was fine. And off we went. So here we are going up this amazing mountain to these just ridiculously incredible temples built into the side of the mountain. The views were insane, just stunning. There were times on the trip up I'm riding this mule. I'm figuring out, okay, do I go forward? Do I go back? What do I do exactly? But my guide was there, and my guide was telling me, or she was motioning because she didn't speak a lot of English, move forward, move back, whatever. Okay. She had it figured out for me. So I referred to her, but there were times that I thought, okay, is my mule, is he going to stay on the mountain? Is he going to be able to stay on the path? Because we were very close to the edge at times, right? But it turned out it wasn't his first mountain climb. He got it all figured out. And it was just beautiful. I mean, just beyond words. So before I know it, we are at the halfway point. It's the furthest point our mules could go. So at that point, we had to walk the rest of the way. And there is a cafe at the halfway point up this beautiful mountain. And it's just incredible. A lot of the group had gotten there before us. We waited for the rest of the group. We got caffeinated. One of the guys bought us donuts because he was amazing, and that's totally appropriate for a hike up a mountain. And so we took a little break, and I just remember looking up at these temples. Clearly they were closer. We were halfway there, but I still could not see how the heck we were getting there. I asked, I said, so, okay, this is where we're going, right? Am I clear on that? We're going there. How do I not see any stairs? How do I not see a path? But I was assured, hey, there is. It'll all become clear when you're walking, Sherry. Okay, got it. I'll just, I will just accept that. I couldn't see it, but I'll accept. So we get caffeinated. We have some donuts. We have all the things. We take off walking. Now, some of the people had walked the entire thing. And so they were already tired in a different way than we were. So Matt and I take off. We're walking. Some of the others were walking with us. And one thing that I really loved about the group was that it was never, that we had to stay together. Clearly, we were there to help one another when needed and to provide that support. And not just on this particular adventure, but throughout the trip. But it was just, we were kind of moving at our own speeds, and it was wonderful. And so we're walking up the mountain. There were times I had a hard time catching my breath because we're in the Himalayas walking up this mountain to these temples. I live in Iowa, folks, right? So I don't know. Are we below sea level in Iowa? I don't know, but I don't have a hard time catching my breath in Iowa. So I just had to remind myself on the way, I need to take deep breaths. So I would stop, take deep breaths. My allergies were going a little berserk. So I was blowing my nose all the time. I mean, it was taking me a while. And I thought, okay, well, we have this 3 to 8 hour range. So I'm okay. It will take me over 3 hours, but it's fine. So we just kept going. And I stopped to, blow my nose all the time. I stopped and reminded myself to take deep breaths. I stretched every once in a while. We just took our time. There was no hurry. And yes, we knew that there were people who were probably at the top at this point, but that was okay. There was no hurry. We were going at our own pace. And the closer we got, the more just stunning it became. It was just absolutely incredible. And we finally saw stairs. There were stairs in sight, a lot of stairs. Okay. Not just a couple. There were stairs down, and then there were stairs back up, and then down and up again. But the path was apparent the closer we got. And although we had no vision of those stairs, we had no vision of the entire path until we got closer, they were there. And we eventually got to the top and took incredible pictures along the way. So I'm sharing this experience because it reminds me so much of some of the experiences we have throughout life when we just decide, I don't see the whole picture. I don't know how we're going to do this. So here are some of my takeaways that I'm hoping are going to be helpful for you too. Generally speaking, like I said earlier, as humans, we want certainty. We want to see the full map before we start. We want the whole picture. We want to understand all the details. We research to the nth degree, thinking that is going to allow us to have certainty, which it never does. But life doesn't work that way. Sometimes the steps only appear once you are on your way, once you're on the path. And a lot of times you don't actually know how to do the thing until you've done the thing. And that's just hard for our human brains to get around. So that was one of my takeaways is we're never going to have the full picture. We just never will. Sometimes we don't until we've actually done the thing. So that's number one. We want a full map. Very seldom do we actually get it. And even if we do have a map, it doesn't mean it's always right. There are going to be detours. There are going to be setbacks along the way. Okay, 2. Regret is scarier than discomfort. So the thought of missing out on this experience outweighed my fears or any aches along the way for me. There were a couple people in our group who didn't do the hike, and that was right for them. They had had some surgeries and they had had some pain throughout the trip, and they just knew due to their own circumstances, they weighed the regret of not going against the regret of going and potentially having excessive back pain the rest of the trip. They decided not to go, and they knew that was right for them. And they made the right decisions, right? We showed them all the pictures. They said, oh, yeah, good, I didn't do that. Now, with Matt, he was kind of, going back and forth. So I'll come back to Matt's situation, but regret for me was definitely going to be scarier than discomfort. And so that's something I encourage you to think about for you too. Whatever that thing is that you're postponing or you've just put off altogether, think about which is scarier, the discomfort or the regret. Okay, 3. Motivation looks different for everyone. So in a previous episode, I had talked to Eric Recker, and he had shared his adventure of going on the Snow Basin Challenge, or not going on it. He tackled, I guess I'll say, the Snow Basin Challenge, which is a 29,029-foot challenge, which is the equivalent of climbing up Mount Everest. Okay, so he went up and down Snow Basin 13 times, I think, within a 36-hour period. Now, that is something that is exhilarating for Eric. He might like climbing up to Tiger's Nest. In fact, I'm assuming he would, but he would be driven to do so for very different reasons. I was driven due to the curiosity and adventure that are just part of my DNA. And I knew it was an experience I wanted to have. Eric is driven more by being able to, but by his competitive nature, by testing his limits, pushing himself, seeing how far he can go. And that is right for Eric. I will never, ever in my life do the Snow Basin Challenge. And that's great for me. It's great for Eric that he does it, right? So everyone is driven by different factors. Everyone is motivated differently. So keep that in mind too. When you're thinking about that thing, because you should still be thinking about that thing. When you're thinking about that thing that you've put off or you've just said no to altogether, think about what is motivating you to not do it. And also what has motivated you for that thought to keep popping up in your mind. What even made you consider doing that thing to begin with, whether you knew the how or not? Okay. So generally, 1, we want a full map before we start. 2, regret is scarier than discomfort. 3, motivation is different for everyone. 4, comparison is unhelpful. No matter what our trek, no matter what path we're on that we can or cannot see, we generally compare ourselves, right? When you're on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, we are constantly comparing ourselves. The thing to remember is comparison is unhelpful. Generally speaking, it's unhelpful. And so when I think about our trek up Tiger's Nest, there were all kinds of people hiking to the temples. And I laughed here and there because there were little kids climbing up. There were adults with kids on their back. There were some elderly people. And there were times I laughed because I thought, oh my, I am quite a bit younger than that person. And she's just, hiking up that thing without stopping. But the thing I had to keep in mind, and I laughed about it for the most part, but the thing I had to keep in mind was that I don't live in the Himalayas. And a lot of those people are Bhutanese. They live in the Himalayas. They hike up mountains every day. They live in that environment and that altitude all the time. And it was especially funny to me because our Bhutanese drivers and our Bhutanese guides they do this trek all the time, right? When they take different tour groups up, and they are just constantly walking in the mountains. It's just part of what they do, is how they live life. So a lot of us in the group were laughing because our Bhutanese drivers and guides there were times we thought they were behind us, and then all of a sudden they'd be right there and then say, do you need water? Do you need anything? How you doing? And they would take pictures. I mean, they were like ninjas. We thought they were behind us. Then all of a sudden they were there. And then all of a sudden we could see them way ahead of us. And then again, they'd be there. It was insane. So we were comparing ourselves to them to some degree just because it was so funny, but they were there to offer us water. And anytime we needed anything, they were there. I don't know how. And maybe they do have these magical ninja, abilities. I don't know. But if at any point I had compared myself and thought, oh my gosh, I am not going as fast as our guide, that would have just stopped me in my tracks. So that's the fourth thing. I think I'm on 4, right? That's the fourth thing. Comparison is unhelpful. Okay, the next one. Doing it or not doing it, whatever that it thing is for you, should not be dependent upon someone else. And I'm saying this because, my example here is Matt's indecisiveness. And it's not that he was necessarily indecisive, but Matt not knowing immediately whether or not he was going to go. So Matt did ultimately decide to go. But if he had decided against going, and I had said, oh, let me stay here with you as a result, I have zero doubt that I would have had some resentment at some point for him not going and for me deciding not to go too, which in the long run would not have benefited him in any way. It would not have benefited either one of us. So sure, maybe he would have enjoyed my company while everyone else was hiking, but that would have just been 3 hours of appreciation versus potentially a lifetime of resentment, right? So something to keep in mind, because oftentimes we think, oh, if this person decides against doing something, I should make the same decision because that would be helpful for that person. But think about if in the end it would actually help that person, and think about how helpful it is to you too, because everyone makes their decisions for various reasons. One of Matt's reasons for considering not going was because he had had back surgery. I hadn't had back surgery. And he was very, very encouraging that I go. I mean, I don't think that if I had said, oh, I won't go because you're not going, he wouldn't have let that happen. But there are people in our lives who would prefer that we don't do what they don't do, right? Because it's just more comfortable for them. And it's hard to see people doing different things. It's just not as comfortable for us. So that's my fourth point. Doing it or not doing it, whatever that it is for you, don't let it be dependent upon someone else's opinion or what someone else decides. My fifth point, support matters. So I could have made it up the mountain with zero support. I absolutely could have. I could have walked the whole way. I could have taken all my water. But having the guides there, those little ninjas that popped in and out offering water because somehow I ran out much sooner than I expected, having the mule, having someone guiding the mule, taking my tea break, these all made the journey that much more exciting and memorable all around. So don't be afraid to lean on others or to ask for help. Oftentimes, this is something I've done a lot in my past, is I think, okay, it'll be that much better if I figure it out on my own, whatever that it is. But when I've thought that, I don't know what I thought better would actually be, because generally things are going to be much better overall if and when we do get support, if and when we do ask for that help. That's what really makes things better. And if I had done the whole thing by myself, if I had not stopped for, caffeine, if I had not taken water from the guides, whatever that was, nothing would have actually been better. I would not have gotten a trophy at the top of the mountain. And the only thing that would have actually been different is it would have been less enjoyable for me. And I would have had less good memories of the whole experience overall. So I would love for you to keep those things in mind. One, we're never going to get a full map before we start. Sometimes we won't even actually know the entire path until we've done it. 2, regret is scarier than discomfort. 3, motivation looks different for everyone. 4, comparison is unhelpful. 5, doing it or not doing it should not be dependent upon someone else. Oh, and look at that, I have 6. And 6, support matters and it's worth it. Don't try to do things on your own. What's the point, ultimately? So yes, I made it to the top. I did. It was breathtaking, both literally and figuratively. But more than that, it was the view, it was the journey that stuck with me the most. So I would love for you to consider, what is your tiger's nest? Maybe it's a project you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a dream of some sort that you've been too scared to chase, or you just can't get your head around the how. Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding. It can be anything. So here's my challenge to you. Take a step. Know that the path will never be as clear as you want it to be. And it might actually not be clear until you're done, until you've reached your destination. But just start, because you just never know. And regret could be the worst option. So thank you so much for listening today. If this episode has inspired you, I would love for you to share it with a friend. I would love for you to share a review. That is so helpful. And I so appreciate you being here. And I will see you next time. Have a great couple weeks. Thanks so much for listening to the Dash Mindset Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player, tell your friends, and leave us a review. Follow me on my social media platforms highlighted in the show notes, and get in touch with me at thedashmindset.com. Share the topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes. Thanks again for listening to the Dash Mindset Podcast. We'll see you next time. Design and differentiate your dash your way and make today amazing.